I just would like to make it very clear that in the exam, in the final, I'm going to concentrate on the words that I've already given to you their meanings. For example, look at this slide. For example, we have the word environment. I give you that its meaning, or some of the possible meanings for the word environment, is the condition we live in or everything around. So in the exam, you're going to be asked about the meaning of environment, and then the answer is to be the condition we live in or everything around. In other words, I've already given to you the meanings of these words so that you have to memorize them, to know them, and they are very possible to be asked in the exam. For example, I give you the word lonely. It means being without any people around. You are going to have a question in the exam of this sort, of this kind, of this type, where you are asked about the meaning of the word lonely. In other words, you have to know the meaning of the word lonely and the rest of the words in English. Let me give you the first question as an example. The word that means work for free. We have 4 options. A, employ. B, volunteer. C, prepare. D, watch. If you refer to the words, we will find out that number 8, volunteer, means work for free. And as such, the answer is to be B for this question. The rest of the questions are similar to what I've just focused on or illustrated to you. Now, the other topic we are going to discuss today is adverbs of frequency. Before I even start talking about adverbs of frequency, I just would like to make it very clear that once we have main verbs like eat, like go, like swim, like speak, if we use adverb, any adverb of frequency like always, like often, like never, we have to locate this adverb before the main verb. So I might say, Ahmed always goes to school. Notice that the main verb is go, and the adverb is always, and as go is a main verb, always, the adverb always comes before it. It is located before it, right before it. Adverbs of frequency. Some of them are always. This means 100%. In other words, if I say, I always go to the university, means I go to the university all the time. All the time. Usually 80%, not all the time, but of course frequently as well. Often, sometimes, seldom, rarely, and never. Location or position of frequency, adverbs in sentences. As I told you, if we have a main verb, the adverb is to be located before it, but if we have auxiliary like is, are, where, was, the adverb comes after it. Let me give you examples. The students afraid of the final tests. The students usually are. The students is usually. The students are usually. The students usually is. Of course, B is the correct answer simply because usually the adverb comes after the auxiliary are. And of course, we have to use are, not is, because we talk about plural, which is students. So the rule states that if there is a helping verb and a main verb in a sentence, we put the frequency adverb between the helping verb and the main verb. Sometimes we might have a sentence that has a main verb and at the same time a helping verb. The adverb is to be located between the two. Let me give you an example. Our doctor, his mobile has switched off rarely This is wrong because the adverb rarely comes after the verb and after the auxiliary. Rarely has switched off and has rarely switched off. Never has switched off. I think it is to be located between the two. So has rarely switched off. Never has switched off. In other words, it is to be between the two. The verb has switched off and rarely. So the answer is that it is to be located between the two, the auxiliary and at the same time the verb. Okay? The answer has to be, of course, B, because has is the auxiliary and switched off is the verb, so rarely comes between the two. Has, which plays the role of an auxiliary in this case, and the switched off is the main verb. So rarely comes between the two. Notice that here of is not a preposition. It is part of the verb switched. In other words, switched off altogether is the main verb. With regard to item number 4, it states the question rule. Once we have an adverb in the sentence, in case of a question, we just replace the subject with the helping verb. In other words, if we have a sentence like the doctor, which is the subject, has never disappointed any students. Notice that never, which is the adverb, comes between the two, the auxiliary has and the main verb, which is disappointed. The only thing we do in order to make a question is to locate the auxiliary, which is has in this case, before the subject, which is the doctor. So the question will become, has the doctor ever disappointed any student? Notice, in the question, we do not use never. Never has to become ever. So be careful in questioning. We change never to ever. So has the doctor ever disappointed any student? Here are other examples, but as I told you, the rule is the same. If we use a main verb, the adverb has to come before it. Helping verb, it becomes after it. If we have a helping verb and a main verb, the adverb is to be located between the two. Next, Ali can usually play football. Can is auxiliary. Play is the verb, usually becomes or is put, is located between the two, the auxiliary can and the main verb, which is play. Ali always plays football. Plays a main verb, always is located before it. She usually eats some chocolate. The same. And of course we add s to play and eats because the subject is one of the third person singulars where the suffix s is to be attached to the verb. To the verb, yes. To the main verb, I mean. She often goes. He is sometimes, notice sometimes comes after the auxiliary is, not before it, like we do once we have a main verb. Ali hardly ever travels by cars, hardly ever travels by car. In other words, hardly ever comes as an adverb, comes before the main verb, which is travels. He never smokes a cigarette. Here we have an essay. Of course, once you are given an essay, and I write it here in the recording lectures, in the slides, this means that you are required to read them and to understand them, because it is very possible that I might take one of these passages and make it part of the exam. Simple past. Okay. I visited my sister yesterday. We went out to dinner last night. Last time I talked about this. We have regular and irregular verbs. Sometimes we make the past only by adding the ed. In other words, if we have the verb visit, we just add the suffix ed. It becomes visited in the past form. But sometimes we might have irregular verbs where we have to change the whole form of the verb, and as such we have irregular verbs like drink, not drinked, it becomes a drank in order to make it in the simple past. Or speak, spoke, spoken, go, went, gone, and so on and so forth. The past progressive, in other words, let me just be back to the simple. Simple past, we use the simple past to indicate exactly when an action or event took place in the past. Something in the past happened, I use the simple past. Like, I visited my sister yesterday, and the action ended up, finished. We went out to dinner last night. Last night we went out to dinner, the action has stopped, no more. But once we use the past progressive is used to talk about an activity that was in progress at a specific point of time in the past. Let me illustrate it in this example or make it as simple as the following. I was studying for an exam while my mother was cooking dinner. Here I'm talking about an action which was in progress, but it was in the past. While I was studying, in the past, while I was doing something, my mother was also doing another thing or another activity. So I was studying for an exam while my mother was cooking dinner. So I'm talking about progressive form, but it was in the past. Let me give you another example. While we were walking in the park, we saw a dog. So in the past, the action was in progress. We were walking. While we were walking, we saw a dog. So this is what we mean by the past progressive. It is an action that was in progress, but all of these activities were in the past. Differs from saying, I am teaching, now I am teaching. But it is also very possible to say something of this type in the past. For example, I might say, while I was teaching, doing an action, the action is in progress, I might say, my friend knocked the door. So I'm talking about the past, but the action was in progress at that given time in the past. Another note, important note, we were walking in the park around 7 p.m. last night. I might say, we were walking in the park around 7 p.m. last night. We were doing an action when our father came. Notice, the past progressive is often used with the simple past to show that one action was in progress, while I was walking in the park. This is an action in progress when another action occurred. Another action, I saw the dog. So part of the sentence is in the simple past, I saw, but the other part is in the past progressive. In other words, the action was being done at that given time, but all of which was in the past. Another example, I was taking a bath when the doorbell rang. The doorbell rang while I was doing something, which is I was taking a bath. Or they were eating dinner when the neighbors stopped by for a visit. What I have just shed light on, what I have just said, is the most important thing that I want you to concentrate on with regard to the final exam. Again and again, because some of the students asked me via the email about the final exam. I've said, and now I repeat, all of the questions are going to be from these slides, from the recorded sessions, from the recorded lectures, from what I say in the lectures. So you just concentrate on this, and inshallah everything will be as you wish, everything will be okay. In addition, this coming Wednesday you're going to have, inshallah, a direct lecture. Write notes, write the questions. I'm ready to answer any question you have in mind. These are other examples, other questions. By doing so, I think we have finished the lecture. I hope everything is okay. I would like to thank you again, and inshallah see you in the direct lecture. Thank you.